Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to run through the difference between income and net worth, as this is one of the most important things that I've learned in my adult life when it comes to personal finance. And I think it's one that we don't necessarily get taught a lot, or at all even, in school, college, or university. And it's something that I've had to really learn myself, the difference between the two. So, without further ado, let's go. So firstly, income, probably the easier one of the two to explain. This essentially is the money that you earn from your day-to-day working activities. Usually for most people this would be your job, you might be a sole trader, you might even own a business of some sort, but effectively this is the money that you get into your bank every month. As I've mentioned in prior videos, for me I like to look at this as the money I have left after all of my bills. So in my case, I earn around £3,000 a month, and after all said and done, I have around £2,000 left to spend on food, going out, fun activities, things like that, and savings. So for me, I try and split this down the middle, and I save £1,000 and probably spend the remaining £1,000 throughout the month. To put it simply, this is just your cash flow throughout the year that you have. And as far as school goes, that's kind of where it ends. You're taught to do well at school, get good grades so you can get a good job and earn money. But you're never told really about the next element, which is net worth. How to build it, what actually it is, and why it is probably one of the most important things that you'll need to know about. So net worth, to put it simply, it is the value of all of your assets minus the value of all of your liabilities. The reason this is sometimes referred to as wealth as well as net worth is that it provides a better overall picture of your financial health. And it's always able to be measured at the specific point in time, as I'll explain now. In my previous video, I went into detail a bit more about what an asset is and what a liability is. So if you wanted a more clear definition of those 2 points, I'd suggest popping back and watching that. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use my own personal example of my net worth at 31 in the UK. So to start with, my most liquid asset, being cash, is around £15,000 I have across various savings and ISA accounts. I always aim to have around 1 to 2 years worth of living expenses saved. I feel like this is a comfortable amount to have as a nice buffer between me and any emergencies that might happen. But you don't want to have much more than that, because even though it's the most liquid of all assets, it's also the most useless of all assets, in that it actually loses value over time while you're holding it. The interest that banks are lending out is always going to be higher than the interest they're paying you on savings. And essentially, because of the way the fractional reserve currency works, which for another video I won't go into detail right now, essentially any money you have in the bank is always going to be eroded by this process, as well as inflation on top of that. My next asset is this house. So this house currently is valued at around £200,000 to £210,000. So I'll put it in at 210 just to make myself feel a little bit better. But that is probably the biggest asset that most people will have, and why I mentioned in my previous videos how buying a house is probably going to be one of the most important things you can do to enhance your net wealth. I have 3 vehicles, this being a relatively cheap van, a really cheap car and a cheap motorcycle. So these come to around £4,000. You could argue not to bother putting these in, but they do have some sort of value. You know, if I did have to sell them, that's roughly the price I probably could get for them. So always worth counting that in. The next one, and the second largest one, is my pension. This is currently sitting at around £88,000 across 2 different workplace pensions I have. And again, this is why I really emphasise paying into your pension, because it's definitely going to be one of the biggest additions to your net worth that you're going to contribute to over your life. And finally, I have another investment outside of the UK in a plot of land in Europe. The land cost me around £6,500. It's now been appraised and valued at closer to 20, which is good because it has various planning permissions and things like that on it. And there's also been some money that's gone over there to start building the property and the retaining wall and things like that. This equates to around £7,500. So all in, this brings my total assets to around £330,000 to £335,000. Again, it's a rough estimate because you don't know exactly what value these items hold on them other than the cash. But I feel like it's quite a healthy amount of assets to have behind me at 31. Now, the liabilities. So in my case, I've worked really, really hard to get myself out of debt. I did have a loan about a year ago that I paid off, which I'm grateful that I was able to do that very quickly. And as I mentioned in my prior video, I also got rid of my car that I had finance on, so that's completely cleared. So the only amount that I have outstanding is my mortgage, and that is currently sitting at £123,000. So that brings my total net worth to between £210,000 to £215,000, again, depending on valuations at the time. And this essentially is what net worth means. It is that if you sold absolutely everything that you owned, obviously other than the cash, had it all as a lump of cash, you paid off all of the debt that you owe, what pot of money would you be sat with? And in my case, it would be around £210,000, which for me, I feel is quite healthy and I'm very comfortable with that. And I think this is why learning about net worth, learning about wealth is really, really important. And the earlier that you can learn about it, the better off you will be, or the better equipped you will be to ensure that you're building towards a good amount of wealth later on in life. I don't do anything really outside of the norm. I don't do anything too risky in terms of buying into risky shares or anything like that. I just religiously pay or overpay if I can my mortgage. I pay extra into my pension, and doing this frequently on a monthly basis, it's really, really boring, I know, super vanilla, but it is what is going to make sure that you can build up that wealth, build that gap up as much as possible to the point where you don't necessarily need to work until the age of, I want to say 68, but let's be real, by the time we get to retirement, it's probably going to be closer to 75. And that isn't something that I want to do. So this is why I really think people should be focusing on net worth. And it's definitely something that I think they should be teaching in schools, at least in college, and definitely some sort of educational course that should be given to people when they first enter the workplace. And that's it. A very simple video, quite a quick one. I just wanted to highlight how important net worth is and wealth. I hope that you found this useful and that you can look at your own net worth and your own wealth and see where you can make little tweaks to improve it. That being said, if you do have any questions or you'd like my opinion on anything, please feel free to drop me a comment. I'd be more than happy to reply. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate your support. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.